we will learn how to combine two functions using the composition. Let's do this using an example. Say g of x is the function 3x plus 1. This says that our function g will take the input x, multiply it by 3, and add 1. What if instead of x, we input x plus 2? Still, we must multiply it by 3 and add 1. So we get 3 times x plus 2 plus 1, which simplifies to 3x plus 7. What if we input x squared? Then g of x squared equals 3 times x squared plus 1. If we input e to the x, we get g of e to the x equals 3 times e to the x plus 1. If we input the function h of x, then g of h of x equals 3 times h of x plus 1, whatever the function h of x may be. This is called the composition of functions, and we write it as g circle h of x. Let's look at another example. Say g of x equals x plus 1 and h of x equals h squared. Then g circle h of x, or g of h of x, is g of x squared, which is x squared plus 1. So g circle h of x equals x squared plus 1. What if we go in the other direction and find h circle g of x, which means h of g of x? Then we must input g of x, which is x plus 1, into h to get x plus 1 all squared. Multiplying this out, we get x squared plus 2x plus 1. So we found that h circle g of x is not equal to g circle h of x. So the order matters. Let's compute another example. Say f of x equals e to the x plus 1. And we want to know, how can we write this as a composition of two functions, g of h of x? So we need to figure out what is g of x and what is h of x. We can find our inside function h of x by looking at what happens to x first. In computing e to the x plus 1, we must first add 1 to x. So h of x equals x plus 1. What about g of x? To find g of x, we need to know what happens to x plus 1. In this function, we raise e to the x plus 1 power. So g of x is e to the x. To check our work, we can compute g of h of x, which is g of x plus 1, which is e to the x plus 1, the function we wanted.